So before we get started, I'd like to make a request of the audience. If you have thoughts on how long the ideal interview podcast episode should be, could you please send me a note, either direct message on Twitter at Oak City CRE or via email at oakcitycre@gmail.com. Again, you are my target audience. I make this show for you, so I'd really love to know what you think. I've heard feedback from, a 10, 15-minute episode is best to I'll listen to something as long as it takes, as long as the information's interesting. So if you could, send me a note or DM and just let me know, what do you think is the ideal length of a podcast episode? Because as the listener, your opinion is the one that truly matters. Welcome to Dirt NC, where we talk all about the places and spaces of North Carolina and the people who make them awesome. I'm your host, Jed Byrne. Throughout my career in real estate development, finance, commercial brokerage, engineering, and construction, I have covered just about all facets of the real estate and land use ecosystem. This show is an opportunity to not only share what I've learned with you, but to also introduce you to my friends who are doing truly transformative work and sharing their stories. With each episode of Dirt NC, my goal is simple. I want you to walk away learning something new about land use. I promise to keep it simple and straight to the point. If you ever have any questions for me, feel free to reach out on Twitter at OakCityCRE. Now let's jump in. Today I had the privilege of speaking with Kathleen Henry, Economic Development Director with Wake County Economic Development. She is a key member of Wake County Economic Development's business recruitment and expansion team. Kathleen manages all aspects of the business recruitment and expansion process and contributes to the overall business recruitment and expansion strategy. She also leads efforts around Wake County Economic Development's international business and foreign direct investment initiatives with the goal of recruiting and marketing the region to foreign-owned companies. Before arriving at Wake County Economic Development, Kathleen worked for the World Trade Center, Savannah, an international economic development organization in Savannah, Georgia, where she served as the Manager of Research and Trade Development, helping regional companies with their international growth strategies, as well as managing the planning, marketing, and execution of inbound trade missions and outbound trade and investment development efforts for the region. Born and raised in Anderson, South Carolina, Kathleen moved to Savannah, Georgia to pursue her bachelor's degree in economics from Armstrong State University. During her 4 years at Armstrong, she competed as a member of the university's national championship tennis team. Kathleen was drawn to Wake County for its great quality of life and for the opportunity to contribute to its exciting economic growth. Kathleen loves spending time outdoors, running the greenways, experiencing the local food scene, and attending sporting events and traveling. During our interview, I learned a ton about economic development. I thought I knew a little, but it turns out I didn't know much. During the discussion, we talk about what Wake County Economic Development is and what they do. We talk a lot about the life cycle of a project, when it starts, what the different pieces are, and really kind of walk through the nuts and bolts of an economic development project. We talk about the status of economic development in Wake County and the state, and all sorts of other things that I hope you'll find very interesting. To me, this discussion is important because it really illuminates what goes on behind the scenes in the world of economic development, and some of these decisions and strategies were put in place 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so it's exciting to read the big announcements on the front of the newspaper, but I think it's easy to forget or really not understand how much work has gone into these recruitment and expansion efforts, and just kind of how long it takes to be a quote-unquote overnight success in economic development. But first, as always, we start out with two truths and a lie.
The first time I traveled outside of the U.S., it was to China.
Okay.
Second thing, I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. And the third, I'm a 4-time NCAA national champion. In tennis.
Yeah, that's going to be my follow-up question. Okay, so 4-time NCAA national championship. And who'd you play for?
Armstrong State University in Savannah, Georgia. It's a Division II.
State. Okay, youngest of 4 siblings. What are your siblings' names?
Laurianne, Melissa, and Ben.
Okay. That was more like a, what was it? Goodwill Hunting, where he's like, I'm one of 9. Like, name them. Ricky Bobby. Okay. And China, first travel. How old were you when you went to China?
I was 19. It was at the end of my freshman year in college.
And that was the first international travel?
Yeah.
Not first time on a plane or anything?
No, not first time on a plane.
So I know you enough to know that you're a tennis player, but four-time champion, so that's all 4 years?
All 4 years.
Okay. You have names. First time travel is to China internationally. These all make a lot of sense, which is tricky. So I'm going to say they are all true, with the exception of the siblings bit, and you're the oldest.
No, I am the youngest.
Okay, so that one's
but
true.
I don't fit any of the negative traits associated with being the youngest.
Sure.
Only the positives.
That's what they all say. That's what they all say. All right, so which one's the lie?
The lie is I'm actually a 3-time national champion.
Is that like a sore spot? Like
it is a sore spot. Yep.
I'm not an athlete by any shape or form.
I feel like my coach would also remind me of that as well. Like junior year, we could have won. We didn't. I could have been a 4-time.
But you made so then that means you made a comeback. So you didn't. Okay, so it was freshman, sophomore, and senior. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's the better way of 3. I mean, I don't know. Is that better than losing your senior year?
Yeah, I think it worked out exactly the way it was supposed to.
All right, perfect.
And you learn a lot more from your losses, so had to lose
Came
one.
back stronger. That's right. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Well, I did not know. I knew you played tennis. I did not know about the championships. No, that's awesome. All right. Well, with that, tell us who you are. And what do you do kind of day to day?
Yeah. So I'm Kathleen Henry. Currently, I'm the Economic Development Director at Wake County Economic Development. I grew up in upstate South Carolina, Anderson, a town you might be familiar with. I see the
familiar. Yep.
Clemson University.
That's right.
Yep. So
my first job in college was in Anderson.
Oh, I'm sorry for you for that. It's a small town, but no. So I grew up there. Ended up going to school at Armstrong University in Savannah, Georgia. I played tennis there. I studied economics. Ended up spending 5 additional years there for my professional career, one of which I worked in the logistics industry. I did ocean export documentation. That was kind of my first real-life introduction to international trade.
Okay. That was with the port?
It was actually with a third-party logistics firm, but yeah, I was helping basically companies ship things internationally on cargo ships. And then I spent the next 4 years working for World Trade Center Savannah, which was the international arm of the development authority there. So I got my start in economic development on the international side, helping companies come into Savannah. I also helped companies do research to help them move into different countries internationally with their markets or with their products. And then also just like hosted trade missions. So we'd have companies come in from Germany and we'd show them all around Savannah.
So a trade mission is an inbound.
I guess there's inbound and outbound. Okay. I did both. So organized inbound trade missions.
And then you would also go overseas trying to get people to recruit people to Savannah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how did you find your way to Wake County?
So I knew Savannah. I mean, Savannah is like the most beautiful city. I loved it there, but it wasn't really a place I was going to settle into. Okay. So had Raleigh on my list actually for 3 years. Props to Wake County Economic Development for all of their like media articles about this is the best place for a millennial to live, like thriving jobs hotspot.
Do economic developers use their tools of the trade to recruit other economic developers to their market?
Yeah, people in general. There's a whole talent recruitment. Yeah. And so Wake County Economic Development does a lot of that. Okay. And so I was one of them. So I had Raleigh on my list. I hardly knew anyone here, but I knew in terms of economic development, it was such a growing place. It was going to be a fun place to live and work. So got very fortunate to get the job as a project manager at Wake County Economic Development. So I've been doing that for 4 years. Okay. Working on the business recruitment and expansion team. So
what does, for people who aren't familiar, myself included, what does Wake County Economic Development do?
Great question. So our organization is the primary economic development agency for Wake County. Mm-hmm. So we cover 12 different municipalities and Research Triangle Park. On my specific role, which is business recruitment and expansion, I'm working on a daily basis with companies that are either existing here in Wake County that are looking to expand their business, or companies from all across the U.S. and the world that are, considering Wake County for a strategic expansion or for a new headquarters. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis, but our organization as a whole also covers so many different areas. So we have existing industry support, so just in general working with companies on their workforce talent pipeline needs. Talent is probably by far the biggest topic that our whole organization talks about and works on. So we've got workforce initiatives that we're leading, working with companies to make sure that 5 years from now or 10 years from now, they have the right type of talent that they need. We also do a lot of work in equitable economic development. Most people probably know Danya Perry, who runs that program. He's incredible. He's done such great work. I think he joined in 2018. And Noor Bakari is also working on that team as well. So in terms of equitable economic development, there are just different areas of our county that are growing at different speeds.
Yeah.
So you've got, the center of Raleigh and Morrisville and Cary and the western part of Wake County that's experienced tremendous growth very quickly. But then you have the eastern part of our county that hasn't experienced as much growth. So we're working on programs and policies to kind of support industry movement and creation of new jobs in that area of the county. And then we also have Innovate Raleigh, which is a program of Wake County economic development. And that's, again, kind of fueling that startup and entrepreneurship scene, which has been pretty incredible, or there's been incredible growth for Wake County specific to the innovation scene here. So that's just meant to cultivate that and grow that.
And then for the for the talent perspective, I think one of our greatest assets, we hear about it all the time, is our universities. And I would guess that provides a pretty stable forecast for you to know kind of, okay, here's how many graduates we have every year coming from all of these institutions.
Yeah.
And I think that helps sell it to firms, as you're marketing the triangle, say, okay, of the graduates, X number of percent stay local.
Yep.
But in a job market that's as tight as it is, what other things can either you guys or we, how else can talent be impacted?
Yeah. Well, I think an important differentiator for our market, which we talk about a lot, is, and from what I've experienced, we've done a lot of research on our competitor metros. Yes, you have our 3 Tier 1 research universities, plus our 12 colleges and universities that are pumping talent into the pipeline every single year.
And I do think that 12 number is something that often doesn't get trumpeted as loudly, but we have a ton of colleges and universities.
Yeah, and if you talk to any of our employers, right now we're sitting downtown Raleigh. We work a lot with O'Hare Mackin at IHS Market. He's pulling students from all of the universities, not just in the Triangle, but throughout the state of North Carolina as well. So,
which is huge.
So that's one aspect that's a huge advantage to our market. But in addition to that, if you look at the growth of our county, so everyone knows we're experiencing tremendous growth. We're supposed to grow by 70% over the next 30 years, and we've got this 48 people that are moving here every single day. 75% of those are coming with a bachelor's degree or higher. We're one of the most attractive areas for PhD relocations. You yourself are coming from, you don't have higher education. Yes. So we're attracting really, really smart people that are moving here every single day. They're coming without a job and knowing that there's opportunity here and that it's more affordable and that it's a great quality of life.
Yeah, we talked about it. So I moved here for grad school, but it shocks me. Maybe it shouldn't shock me, but it comes up more often than I would think, of the number of people just talking and say, well, how'd you wind up in Raleigh?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we put together a spreadsheet.
Yes.
I think that's very like type A. Maybe it's the PhDs that do this, but put together a spreadsheet and looked at all these different metrics and ran the numbers.
Yep.
And Raleigh came out number 1.
Yep.
And so we moved, and I was like, that's amazing. I would never do that. but there are several people in my mind that I can think of that said that exact story of just, we ran the numbers and it wasn't, oh, they're number one on this list. We had our own kind of metrics for success.
Yeah.
And we crunched the numbers, and Raleigh was number one. So we moved.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Well, and we crunch the numbers too. We do our metro comparison analysis, and it's literally hundreds of data points, probably including a lot of your like quality of life ones that you had in yours as well. And we have ranked number one for the past 4 to 5 years. So it's, there's definitely something special here
for sure
going on.
So we talked about kind of where you operate, but what is, and I think you and I talked about this before the recording started, but for me, economic development usually comes up when I'm reading the newspaper and I see, Governor Cooper on the front at a stage at a ribbon cutting, and so just announced so many jobs, or we just opened this plant, or this company relocated, or this company expanded. But what is the life cycle of a project? Like, where does it start? And maybe it ends at the ribbon cutting, or maybe it ends on the front page of the newspaper.
No.
But okay, so that was my
Definitely
my hunch.
not.
So walk us through, if you could, the kind of life cycle of a project.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked, because it is, what's funny is usually by the time we get to the announcement day, which is always a very special day, but we're usually just catching our breath, because we've probably spent, 9 to 12 months with this company in a very detailed process, very high intensity process. So backing up a little bit, typically 80% or so of our projects come from the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, which is our state's economic development agency. A certain number of their projects are coming to them from site selection consultants.
And a project is anything that is a need or a opportunity? It's
a company that's intention is to create jobs and investment in a community. And that comes in all different shapes and sizes for us. We work with some that are thousands of jobs. I'm working projects that are 20 to 50 jobs, so all across the board. But a site selection consultant, which is who we are often working with for these projects, are working on behalf of the Apple, the Amgen. Sometimes we do have companies that come in on their own that aren't working with consultants. That happens as well. But essentially the projects get funneled from the state to whatever local economic development area has been identified as a location of interest. So if it's the Research Triangle, it's coming to, the 3 counties within the Research Triangle. Typically for us, the kickoff process is receiving a request for information or a request for proposal, which can be, I'm going to use the example because it's a project that I worked, Amgen, which announced in August in Holly Springs.
Very cool.
They're going to be building a biomanufacturing center, creating 400 jobs, $500 million in investment into the town and the county.
Congratulations.
Thanks. It was a really fun project to work because we got to interact directly with the company representatives a lot. But in any case, that one came in December with a very detailed RFI, so requesting information on our business climate, the type of talent that we have. This company in particular was very focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, so a lot of elements were submitted for that RFI. We also had real estate requests that come through, so they were looking for a certain pieces of land that could accommodate and that were ready to meet a very fast timeline for them. So that for that project in particular, we went through this like initial due diligence phase where when we're receiving this initial RFI, we're probably one of 10 communities throughout the U.S. and the world being considered.
Do you know that at the time?
No.
Okay.
Oftentimes we're given very little information. We're just told, here's a life science company, here are the number of jobs, like here are the critical real estate requirements that they're requesting.
We're trying to grow the company. These are the things that we think we need to grow. Because again, to your point about if we have all the talent, but there isn't available land to build the plant on, or to build the facility, or build the headquarters, then you got a problem. If you have the land but not the talent, you've got a problem. And I'm sure there's a whole mix of criteria that you're looking to rank high in all of those things.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, once we submitted that, I think there was a couple weeks where we didn't hear anything, just because the consultant is then doing their own evaluation to basically pare it down to 3 to 4 communities, because realistically, for a company to do the type of due diligence, both for the community and then if you get into the details of the land, 3 to 4 is as much as they can do. It's probably the most efficient process
and
for
it's
them.
Part of the value of the consultant, which isn't what we're talking about here, but it's part of their value, the vetting of the information. My guess is if I come to you and say, hey, tell me about Raleigh, you're probably it's going to be a very rosy picture, and you're going to provide all the best. Well, I mean, of course, it's a fabulous place.
It is.
But then my job as the consultant is to say, okay, everyone's, putting their best foot forward. Let me make sure to double check, balance these out, make sure it all makes sense, because I'm presenting to my client. Okay.
Exactly.
So they run their due diligence.
Yep.
And we rank in the top 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then for this project in particular, we were given 20 to 30 minutes to, and this was virtual because, again, we're still in a pandemic, but that kind of changed things. Typically, we'd have that community overview follow an intensive site visit and taking them all around, which we did do in this process. But so I had 20 to 30 minutes to pitch Wake County and the Triangle. It was both with the site selection consultants and the company representatives. We did not know who we were or who I was pitching. Yeah. I didn't know the roles or the names of the company representatives. They put fake names on Zoom, which is a very normal thing. They're actually... You're not Googling in the middle of the Zoom? Yeah. I tried after to Google, but that was a waste of time. So once we did that, we essentially just... I think that opportunity, because you're given 20 to 30 minutes, is just like show the company that, we have data to back up what we're saying. Yeah. We have the story behind it. Like, here is the story of the life science ecosystem in the Triangle.
Because at that point, you're not really changing their mind. I mean, the market is what the market is. Our assets are what they are. We can offer what we can offer. It's really, hey, we'll be easy to work with. We'll be good to work with. And we have all the information to back up all the stuff that we've told you and any further questions.
Exactly. And that's the biggest part, is the additional questions. Yeah. So we had a lot of follow-up to do after, just in terms of questions. Every company representative had a different, one was an engineer, one was a talent person. So they're asking questions about transportation, but also specific types of degrees and how many. So
very opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right.
And at this point, do you know, so you don't know the company, you don't know what they do, you don't know who these people are that you're talking to. No. I'm envisioning like a black silhouette and like a voice modifier, like the FBI. But do you know, hey, they're going to bring, or they intend to bring 400 jobs and invest $500 million, and it's manufacturing or bio, like, do you know the industry?
Yeah, we know. Yeah, they give us enough information that we know, even down to like the type of biologics manufacturing that they're doing. So
they want to give you enough to be helpful, because then you can provide better information, but not so much to know who's who and what's what. Okay. Yeah. All right. So you do the interview. No pressure there.
No pressure there.
$500 million on the line.
No pressure at all. And from there, my goodness, like probably from January to their announcement date, I probably sent one email a day, and it was Project Titan was the name of it. So if you hear me refer to it as
Very
Project
cool.
Titan. So from there, it was basically, they narrowed in on a site in the town of Holly Springs, initially Oakview Innovation Park. So we went through many meetings with the town of Holly Springs, the North Carolina Biotechnology Center, the EDPNC, the developer, the engineering firm, the utilities. Had multiple conversations specific to this site, and could it accommodate the growth and everything that they wanted. The interesting part of this project was that at the same time, Fujifilm Diosynth Biotechnologies was 3 months ahead of Project Titan, and signed a letter of intent to purchase the land. So I, myself, and the town of Holly Springs had the unfortunate thing to do, which was to share with Project Titan or Amgen that this site that has been your priority site, you know, they loved it, we had done a bunch of work, was no longer on the table. Anyway, we shifted to another site in Holly Springs, the Friendship site, right off of US 1, close to 540. It was a wonderful alternative for them, just proved a little bit riskier because there was an existing water and sewer to the site. So both a mix of really digging into the specific site there, making sure, I mean, this company in particular, just their process was very, very intensive. They asked every single question. In fact, they asked, why is it called the Friendship site? You know, that level of detail. So in addition to the real estate side, as I mentioned before, you've got company representatives that are also focused on hiring the right types of talent. Amgen in particular has committed to hiring 1 million Black workers, or they're part of a group that has committed to hiring 1 million Black workers over the course of 15 or so years. So having conversations with them, we brought them multiple times into the community for site visits, both for the real estate, but then for the community and talent piece. So one site visit in particular, we had their global head of manufacturing, their global head of engineering, their global head of HR, all sitting at...
Are they still incognito mosquito at this point? Do you know who they are?
At this point, we know who they are. We've all signed NDAs. Okay. Which was... It was honestly such a relief once you're able to say,
if that is your real name.
Yes. We did a lot of that, and it was fun for them. Not necessarily fun, but they laughed about it too, because they're not looking for, new communities every single day.
Right.
So
this is not a weekly occurrence.
Yes, yeah. So we sat with them at North Carolina State University at the BTech Center, which is the biotechnology training center where they do specific manufacturing training for the biologics, for biomanufacturing. So we sat in there with North Carolina Central University, who also has a huge life science program for their students. We had Wake Tech Community College represented as well. All of our, industry partners and the town of Holly Springs. We had Secretary Saunders, the Department of Commerce, EDPNC. So I say that just when we talk about economic development truly as this giant team sport, like the number of partners that were involved in this throughout the course of the 6 to 9 months that they were making their decision was really important.
The thing that's interesting to me too, you talked about water and sewer. So you've got developers at the table, you've got engineering firms at the table, you've got utilities and trying to figure that out. But then also, once you get the real estate piece kind of circled in on the site or alternative sites or having backups, because again, I think my next question is going to be about kind of what's the state of things, but my sense is you're fielding a lot of requests and a lot of projects are going on at the same time. So you could say, listen, if this site is available today, and if you snooze, you lose, because there are other firms that are doing similar things or need 100 acres and but on top of that is kind of, and the interesting thing about land use in general to me is just how interconnected everything is, because once you have 500 jobs, well, now you've got a whole host of new families that are moving to town, some that are relocating. So you have to have the residential real estate, you have to have retail, you have to have school. All these things are interconnected. And again, back to the point of, well, we see it on the front page of the newspaper, but it's a much bigger, and again, maybe the 500 million encompasses that, but my guess is it doesn't. It's kind of this rippling impact, which I think is why we do why you do economic development in the first place, is because you can invest and kind of multiply the impact of those dollars.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I'm really glad you said that, because it brings up a great point that, again, I get involved just because it's my daily process of managing these projects, right? But then you have Irina Kristanovich. She's with the town of Holly Springs. She runs their economic development. She's been there for 20 years. 20 years ago, she presented to the town council and said, I think that we should position Holly Springs as a life science destination. And she did not get overwhelming support. 20 years ago, you know, they looked at her like, you're crazy. Like, you know, we're a small town. And what do you mean life science manufacturing? What does that even look like? So she has spent the past 20 years, you know, in her economic development lane, finding sites within her community, going through a site assessment program, getting her sites certified. Meanwhile, yes, you have the town that's also focused on their residential development and amenities and making sure that along with the mix of industry, there's also a great place to live. Yeah. So
it's fascinating how all that stuff connects.
Yes, absolutely.
So you get through that process, you answer the questions, you do the site tour. Is the next phase kind of commitment?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, honestly, up until the day of the announcement, there were still questions remaining, right? Because you're dealing with a company that is on such a strict timeline, and this is specific to a life science project, is that once their drug is approved by the FDA, they have to start manufacturing on this particular day. So
and to do that, they need a facility.
They need a facility and they need water and sewer. And how are you going to get it there? So, you know, essentially they have to make a decision. You know, we're all encouraging them because it's a competitive project and we're competing against other states. So yes, we're saying, hey, you already had one piece of land that a company grabbed up. Like, you should make your decision. Let's start clearing the land and moving the project forward.
And on the real estate piece, I'm used to there being, you know, if a private company is directly buying, you know, a piece of dirt from a developer or a seller, you know, they're under contract. And at some point, it's kind of this timeline where you say, okay, in the next 90 days, assuming X, Y, and Z doesn't happen and A, B, and C do happen, we're going to get to closing. Are you guys on a timeline that you can say, okay, as long as, like, we should know in the next 6 weeks that this is going to happen?
Yes.
Okay, so there is...
Yeah, it does reach a point. So when we announced in August, let's say June, July, we had a very strong indication that Wake County was their ultimate goal, right? Like, that they want to make this piece of land work. And so that's why the town is able to shift all of their staff to focus on this. And it's why, you know, our organization says, okay, like, we got to get this over the finish line.
And at that point, you're trying to reduce risks so that the company says, okay, we think that all the things they promised us are true. We think we can accomplish what we need to accomplish. And because, again, to your point, they have a lot riding on their business to get done what they need to get done.
Yeah. And so, they make their announcement, on both sides, there has to be trust there. And so that's what we came to, is like showing that we're willing to do all of these things. Are you willing to do all these things? And in this case, yes. And
you guys have a track record, I would assume, as an organization, and to be as successful as we have been as a county and as a region, you would also have a reputation to say, we will also make sure that all the things that we said would get done will get done. And
Absolutely.
The time, I mean, it's just, it's trust.
Yeah.
So you've got a track record.
Yep.
I think I saw something in the paper that the state just crossed a threshold of 100 billion. Okay.
Yes.
So statewide, things are booming. How are things looking in Wake County?
Well, it's funny because I saw the 100 billion number and it made our historic numbers over the past year seem really small, but it just goes to show, like, economic development in the state of North Carolina and in the Triangle is just, it's booming right now, which who would have thought? I definitely did not think that at the start of the pandemic, that we would be where we are today. So over the past 12 months, we've announced more jobs and investment than we ever have in history. So we announced almost 6,000 new projects and $3.6 billion in capital investment. For the capital investment portion, that's like 10 times the amount that we've ever announced in a fiscal year. Yeah. Right now, in terms of active projects, we're looking at 41 projects or 41 companies that are considering our market, 10,000 new jobs, and also $4 billion in investment. So large.
I mean, as a percentage, though, so out of the 100, we're 4%. which you know, on a county basis is one county. We should be 1%. We're punching above our weight considerably, which is good. But it is interesting when you talk about, I mean, 100 billion is, you know, 0.1 trillion, which is crazy. You start throwing a T around. But also, I mean, it's 100,000 million. Like, it's a mind-boggling number when you think about it. I think it's easy to get lost in the details, but that's a lot of jobs. That is a lot of investment. That is a lot of activity.
It's transformational. That's truly what it is. I mean, it's transformational, and not to speak for the state, but you know, I know that there's, just because we've seen also, you know, Ford announcing its location in Tennessee, you've got these major electric vehicle manufacturing facilities that are coming, looking at, you know, millions of square feet of space and bringing a lot of investment.
and like you mentioned, this, you know, it's one thing to see it on the news. Okay, so 100 billion, but that's you know, a long time overnight success, right? So people have been working on this story and putting the literally pipes in the ground, right, for the water and sewer, and making these investments long term, so you can say, well, once we set this all up, you know, right, it takes 20, 30. I mean, I guess RTP came, what, 50, 70 years ago?
Plus,
long time ago. And so, right, that kind of got us started on this track. So it's amazing. You know, it's good to celebrate the wins. But I think it's important to remember that it's a long time coming.
Absolutely.
You mentioned earlier these site consultants, and so one of the questions we had talked about would be interesting is, what are, you know, as people come here and site consultants look from wherever, you know, either domestic or international, what are some of the things that I guess or I don't know if it's concerns or if it's questions that they're asking, things that they want to make sure that we have, or what are things that maybe they wish we had that we don't.
So traditionally in economic development, and it evolves over time in terms of what a company's drivers are for how they're selecting their location. So that's what the consultant is interested in. Talent across the board, across the US, that's usually what is driving a company to relocate. And for us, that's great because it's an area that we really excel. There's also other just main buckets that almost every economic development organization is talking about. So if you look at your business operating environment and business friendliness, that's really important. Your cost of living, your cost of doing business, your quality of life. Innovation is another, super important factor. We talk about talent and innovation, and the convergence of those two areas a ton. So we're always trying to make sure that, because other economic development organizations are talking about those, that we're presenting it in a different, more unique way, or talking about how we're unique. Over the course of the pandemic, 2 new topics rose to the surface for site selection consultants, one of them being diversity, equity, and inclusion, which should be no surprise to anyone, just with everything that we saw, the murder of George Floyd, the civil unrest that was throughout the country. You had companies that I think maybe restarted the conversation, or at least said, we want this to be more important in how we're selecting locations. So we have answered a lot of questions. We've talked a lot about where we're at as a community, where we're trying to go, programs that we've implemented to support equity and inclusion in the workplace, all those things that are really important.
And again, I would imagine that's where it comes as laying the groundwork of having someone like Danya on, you know, boots on the ground. It's not, oh, here are stats. It's, here's how we're addressing this. Here's how we're laying the groundwork for all of this. So when you come in, again, you can trust that Wake County is going to deliver what it says we can deliver.
Absolutely.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Very cool. What about, kind of to wrap things up, if people who are listening want to learn more about economic development or you, where should they go? What can they do? I mean, are there books or resources, or kind of what's the call to action if folks are more interested in economic development?
Yeah, I would start if you're interested, just check out our website. We've got a ton of great resources there, but also just if anything sparked an interest, there are so many ways through the Raleigh Chamber of Commerce, which we are a program of, through the Regional Transportation Alliance, which is a program of the Chamber. We've got our Triangle DEI Alliance, just so many great avenues for people to get connected. So definitely reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions or get people connected.
Awesome. And I'll include those links in the show notes. So Kathleen, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming out and teaching us all a little something about economic development.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
As always, I'm so grateful that you have chosen to share this time with me. If you ever have any questions about Dirt NC or any land use related issues, you can reach out to me on Twitter at OakCityCRE. Also, if you're looking for a simple and straight to the point weekly update on commercial development in Raleigh, you can subscribe to my newsletter at www.oakcitycre.com. Until next time, thank you.